it's so fun to go back and think about the genesis of this whole character, and I'm excited for us to break down the pieces of ECW where you had a little bit of an overlap where they knew that you were going to be doing the character, but nobody knew what it was. But your lawsuit did make the Observer, by the way.
Oh, it did, huh?
So that was at least out there. But that Corpus Christi match was March 10th. That you had that dark match to sort of get used to the character. Take me through that dark match where you finished up with ECW straight to Corpus Christi on no sleep. Yeah. It's not really a tryout match, you're signed, but boy, Vince is watching that 13-inch monitor, and if it doesn't go well, who knows? When you come through the curtain, how did you think you were received?
I thought I was received pretty well. It seemed like it was received pretty well.
Sometimes guys have these persona changes. So like Moondog back in the day tried to be a part of Demolition.
Right.
Didn't work. Was there a concern, what if they start yelling Cactus? Or does that even cross your mind?
It crossed my mind in ECW strongholds and in the Northeast where the Cactus, the more people gravitated towards being heel fans. I don't want to, I know you're a proud Alabama resident, but let's just say in Huntsville, the dudes were still over, as in the dynamic dudes. They were still that traditional base that got behind traditional baby faces, whereas in the Northeast, it's like, dude, you got to show me something different.
Right.
So there was a night and day difference. I mean, it reached the point with the dynamic dudes in the Northeast that fans actually body painted the words Shane sucks Johnny's, and what was really inspiring to me is that a few of the body painters were willing to be the blank spaces between the words. That's commitment.
It is. That's
commitment. So while the dudes are being hated in some parts of the many parts of the country, they were still over in Huntsville, brother. Got to give them props for that. Give them props for that. So it was worried that, more so in the ECW strongholds, that people would be chanting for Cactus, or at least know who I was, and that would look, man. I love all fans, right? And we're all smart fans to some degree. That doesn't mean we have to be snarky fans.
Yes, I agree.
And so, for example, when Bray Wyatt came out and fans were chanting Husky Harris, it's like,
awful.
Do you realize you are putting this man's livelihood in jeopardy because you are going to possibly torpedo a premiere because you want people to know that you know? Like, please, at a certain point, be a part of the fun. That you do a wink and a nod, but just chanting Husky Harris to show you could do it. Man, that I'm glad that they didn't pull the plug, but the plug could have been pulled. Vince could have said, "This will never work."
I mean, think about The Rock's first, year or so. That was really rough. And what if, when Stone Cold came out, if people were still chanting Stunning or Ringmaster? They got to have a chance to grow and evolve.
Right. And I think for the most part, we do that as fans.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate when that's not the case, but it was worried that I was going to get that type of reaction in Philadelphia for Mind Games, for example. Yeah, so I had to come out and cut a promo on the fans that I would never go back to that boiler room. Uncle Paul, please don't make me go back to that boiler room. And that seemed to work. But by and large, when I came back, the agents were complimentary. I think Chief Jay Strongbow saw what I was kind of doing with the walk. And he suggested, him and George Steele suggested putting a lift in one shoe to accentuate the limp. And I did not do that. It would have made running and walking and all that difficult. But they suggested things, but pretty much left me alone to create. I look at the first promo photo of me as Mankind, and it's against a green background. I'm kind of like grabbing my mask, and it's clear I didn't know what that character was going to be yet. And we really started, I put a lot of work into it. The company obviously did their part with Undertaker doing more than anybody by seeing something in that character. that he wanted to work with, but they left me alone by and large to grow, so that I went from just hating that mask, especially when I did that run-in with the Undertaker, and I couldn't appreciate whether or not it had gone right, because hey, you're so nervous before you do these. These are life-changing angles. I'd have to compare it to the way I felt when I was inside the giant gift box in September of 1991 in Macon, Georgia. I came out of there literally saying prayers, because I've got a small infant child, I've got a wife, and I think we hadn't purchased a home yet, but I had responsibilities, and now another life-changing event. I'm about to attack the Undertaker. I came out of there, I couldn't breathe. I was so blown up just from doing that one angle, mainly due to nerves. And I remember talking to my wife. It was on a payphone, not a cell phone, and just saying, maybe I can do this for 2 or 3 months and become Cactus Jack. I hated it. And
it was mostly the mask and the breathing?
The mask and the breathing that I hated about it. And it was uncomfortable on my head. And again, there was a big part of me that still didn't think Cactus Jack was broken, didn't need to be fixed. But I stuck with it, and I started seeing the results on a nightly basis, and started seeing that I could, even before I realized that I thought that there was any chance that Cactus Jack would come back, especially at Madison Square Garden, in front of my parents, in the same building I grew up hitchhiking to and taking trains to, and seeing Snuka dive off the top of the cage. Even before all that, I was like, okay, I'm gonna make this work. I'm going to find that dark place to retreat to, which turns out to be the bowels of the building, the boiler room. I'm going to work on the rocking back and forth. I'm going to do as much as I can to distance this character from Cactus Jack. Kept some of the same moves, the elbow, flying elbow, double.
I wanted to ask about that. As the Mankind character, are you? We know you've discussed the finisher, but did they give you any sort of, hey, we would like for your style to look like this, or these signature moves? Is there any of that talk of what to borrow or what to keep from Cactus Jack?
I knew it was going to be fairly limited, and this is where, I think a lot of guys in the business could benefit from having, being reined in. So, for example, when I do the live shows, I thought at first I benefited by the fact that I can talk about anything. I can reference popular culture. I can talk about politics. I can do observational. I can do anything. And then once I realized, wait a second, this is the strong point. And I went to see Willie Nelson perform at the Westbury Music Theater, which now has a corporate name. And I would either see people on their way up or their way down,
right,
or plateaued. You didn't see people at the top of their career. So I'd seen some acts to me that looked like they'd rather be anywhere else but on stage. And then I see Willie Nelson. And I thought, oh, man, there's no place this guy would rather be tonight than on that stage. And that's when I realized he's jamming. He's not just playing note-by-note renditions. So I thought, if I can go on stage and jam and take stories that may already be known, but find ways to make them fun and different and interesting. Now I'm not just a guy reciting golden oldies. Now I'm Willie Nelson telling wrestling stories. So I have no idea what that has to do with your previous statement.
No, I just wanted to know, move-wise.
Yeah. So in other words, by limiting what I could do, limiting the parameters, it made what I did much stronger. And I think a lot of wrestlers would improve if they kept that. I've got this move. This works with the character. Anything outside of this move set doesn't mean you can't throw in a surprise move. Undertaker doing the dive once a year means so much more than Undertaker doing the dive every night. So when I realized, all right, I'm going to stick to certain moves, and they're going to be kind of realistic, and there's going to be that. Nowadays you can't do the clawing because it's seen as lazy stuff. It's not seen as good work. But when you had a character that was based in brutality, and you wanted your face in those shots, and you want the foreboding, almost horror movie shot. Here comes a bad guy from behind. He's coming in slow. You know, we know that, for example, the best way to pull a sock out of your waistband to use it is from here to here, but that's not what we do. We go from here to up here, right? And now I'm going to see, this is Baron Mikel Cicluna, who a friend of mine, John Arizzi, referred to lovingly as the fakest of all the wrestlers, because all his stuff looked hokey. But when you go for the foreign object, you're thinking logically, okay, this is something I could be disqualified for.
Better be discreet.
Yeah, better be discreet. That's where you're going to make the here, but that's not what we do in wrestling. We come up here, down, around, boom, pull it out. Here's the reveal. And so, you know, our motions are grand. Especially
you're playing to the worst seat.
Yeah, and especially before the days of high def, and especially you know, a lot of companies still counted on that hard camera shot. Bill Watts came into WCW, and he didn't want to see guys calling spots. Thought you minimize that by concentrating on the hard camera shot, but then you make your entire product boring, at the risk of somebody finding out guys call spots.
Yeah,
kind of self-defeating. But you were, in a lot of cases, still playing not only the worst seat in the house, but, you know, the moves were grand. Vince is still grand, right?
Oh, yeah.
There's no, because he's still playing, you know, and one of
even his walk.
Even the walk, right? The walk became more and more exaggerated as he went, right? Because at first it was just like a little pep in his step. And then it got to the point where it was hard to keep a straight face when he came down, because it was so ridiculous. So I compared and contrasted my experiences working on camera with Mr. McMahon and working on camera with Willem Dafoe.
Wow.
And I was looking at Willem Dafoe do these 20 takes, and I was like, but he's not really doing anything. And then you see it back on camera, and it looks like he's got this entire, you know, blend of facial expressions, and who's to say that doesn't work, because it does. But you also can't argue that Vince McMahon doing the big gulp of fear doesn't work, because it does. If any actor tries on the big screen to portray fear the way that Vince did, that's likely his last acting role for a long time, but it works so well. We are still finding ways to balance the, you know, the acceptance of the high definition and not having to be so much larger than life, with the fact that ultimately it comes down to the biggest stage of them all, and you are still selling to the worst seat in the house. But a lot of those movements, you know, are going to be grand, because you know, I wanted that still to be the presentation of not just a realistic wrestling match, but something of a horror movie come to life.